Okay, welcome back. What we're going to be doing today is taking this Photoshop file, which for this scenario, say this is the header of a website. Now this thing is really big right now. This is actually just a really big display. It's 336 megabytes. It's 26.665 inches across by 15 inches high, and it's 200 pixels wide. I did this graphic for a promo for Photoshop Masterclass that I do, but we're going to use this as, say, as a scenario to take this image and resize it and turn it into packaging for a CD cover, like a silkscreen cover, and also for a little the little thin DVD or CD jewel boxes. So I'm just gonna switch here to InDesign. So this is kind of what I'm looking at right now, and this is the actual little template that I was provided, and I want to actually, and I've gone in and I've just taken the liberty to place this the previous Photoshop file I showed you, that masterclass, just in here, and you see it doesn't really fit right. Like, it's a lot of stuff has to be changed. And you can see you've got all the specs across here, the die line and the bleed and all that kind of stuff. If you don't know what any of this stuff is, read the text. Anyway, so you got this, and then we also have, I'm just going to zoom up here, and then we have this wonderful DVD itself. Now the DVD itself also has certain issues you have to tackle, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually have to do up 2 different versions of this layout in order to fit each one. So what I'm going to do in this little excerpt here is just basically kind of size this thing down and convert to CMYK and make sure everything is cool, because there are a couple different ways to convert Photoshop files to CMYK. So I'm going to go back here. So you'll notice I've got everything relatively organized. I've got all my layers over here, and some of the layers are turned off, some of the layers are turned on, etc., etc. I've got all this kind of stuff hooked up. So I've got this thing called all. So this is all my guts. So I turn this off. There you go. Then I've got this thing called background. It's nice to separate stuff out because I'm going to have to resize some of this stuff, but I still have to keep the background, right? So the idea is that right now this is RGB. If I was just to go in here and go to mode, convert to CMYK, what's going to happen is that I'm going to get a lot of changes and a lot of stuff going all crazy on me. So what I first want to do is size this thing up, make sure everything is relatively in the same spot, and then flatten it into a Photoshop layer or merge stuff down. So the first thing we're going to do is we got to make this thing a little bit smaller, just give us some room to play. So I'm going to go into image size, and notice I'm keeping this at RGB because RGB file sizes are smaller than CMYK. I'm going to make all of my changes before I convert it in the end. It just saves memory and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go to image size, and this is a really big file. And first thing I'm going to do, because actually I want this timing at 300 dpi, so I'm going to click off resample. When I click off resample image, all these guys are connected. The resolution and the height and the width are interconnected. So if I was to type in, for example, 300 down here, notice the resolution goes down. If I was to type in 100, notice the resolution goes up. So it's an inverse relationship. Whatever you make, if you make the width, the height bigger, you're going to lose on resolution. If you make the resolution bigger, you're going to lose on the height and width. So just so you know. So I'm going to make this 300. Actually, sometimes I actually go a little bit overboard and I make it 400 or 500. That way it gives me some room to play, so I can scale stuff up and down when I'm laying this thing out in InDesign or Illustrator. So I'm going to make this 400 just for fun, just for kicks and giggles. And the width is going to be 13.5 by 7.5. So I'm going to click that off right now. So now we're good. So I'm going to go OK. Okay, so notice nothing really changes because all it's doing is just messing around with the resolution and the size. So it's 13.33 at 7.5, it's RGB color, and it's 400 pixels per inch. So I'm going to go back over here again, back to image size. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to notice this resample image, I clicked it on. So I want to leave this on now. And then I'm going to actually physically reduce the size of the file without reducing the resolution. So you always got to reduce the smaller number. Don't hit the bigger number because sometimes you might lose in the height. So what we want here is, I'm going to flip back here to my actual template. Let's see. A rule of thumb is that if your artwork is big enough for the jewel case insert, it will be big enough for the CD itself, because the CD or DVD is smaller than the diameter of the jewel case. So let's see, we're looking at, let's make this thing 5 inches. So the maximum width of this template is 5 inches. So we're going to make our Photoshop file, let's make it 6.5, just to give us some room to play. So you see, we're smushing this thing down. It's coming down in size. So then we're going to go OK. And it's going to do its thing. And because I have a lot of stuff open, it's going to take some time. Do. Okay, we're done. So now that this thing is resized, first thing I'm going to do is save it as something else. And I'm going to go into here into week 11 because this is where all the stuff is. This is where my previous one is, Masterclass PSD. Now I'm going to call this guy, let's see, 400 dpi. It's a nice way. Usually when I'm making changes to the resolution, I always put the resolution in the title so I can tell what the heck's going on. And I'm going to make sure my layers is turned on. All that kind of stuff is cool. Saver. I think I need a new laptop. You wouldn't have to wait so long if I had a new laptop. Send money to me, then I can buy a new laptop. Or save your money and buy yourself one. Alright, sweet. This thing's saved. So now we got this thing all set up. So what we want to do now is we want to actually, a nice way to do this, what I prefer to do this is actually take this actual file, which actually is an EPS, a template, and we're going to bring it in and just kind of copy and paste it. That's the easiest way. Let's see, which way should we do it? Copying pasting actually has its own particular problems. If you don't do it correctly, you're going to get the wrong size. So what I'm going to do is actually, I'm just going to draw some rulers in the Photoshop file and just kind of set it up that way. So because it's a bit easier and there's less room for error that way. Let's see, so we're going to make this, it's the maximum trim width is 4.75 and it's 5 inches across there, and it looks like we've got 1/8 of an inch bleed area. So blah 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 blah. Alright, so let's 5 inches by 4.75. Now this is the maximum. Okay, this is the actual viewable area is this red line in here. That's like the safety area, which means that no text should exceed beyond that area, because it may get trimmed off. So I'm going to make this 4.75 by 5. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop, and this thing's still really big. So I'm going to work from the center. Here's a cool trick. If I go to Window, I believe, or View, let's go to New Guide, and I'm going to put one on blah blah the vertical, and instead of putting position as inches, I'm going to put in 50, if it will let me, 50%, and then go OK. Pow. What it does is it figures out, you know, the actual width of the thing and sticks a guide right dead center in the middle of this document. So I'm going to actually do another one here, New Guide, and I'm going to put on the horizontal just so I have a nice center point to reference from, and I'm going to put in again 50%. Go OK. There's my exact dead center crosshair, so I can work from this. So now what I'm going to do is I can do a couple different things. I'm going to actually go in here and I'm going to zero this thing out. Now this is just my personal preference. It's totally up to you from now on how you set this up. So that's 0. So what are we looking at? We're like 4.75. So I'm going to draw out, since it's 2 1/4. Well, I'm going to make this, I'm going to draw this out to about 5, if it will work for me. So what I'm doing is I'm drawing out some guides. Because I'm horrible at math, I'm not going to do the division. I'm just going to make this 5 inches square all the way around. So there's 0, So 2.5 on each side is going to give me a total width of 5 inches from here to there. And so then I'm going to go down here